Hey there, my name is Curtis Williams, and welcome back to the Jesus, Jules, and Justice podcast, where we look at theology, science, and justice, all from a biblical perspective. Today on the show, we'll be looking at God's handiwork in creation. This is going to be a really interesting topic, so without further ado, let's jump to the conversation. The creation accounts in Genesis chapters 1 and 2 describe God's creation as very good. But then in the next chapter, in chapter 3, the fall of man occurs. Adam and Eve, they sin, they disobey God. But it's not only the man and the woman and their offspring that are corrupted. It's the whole of creation that's corrupted. And the Apostle Paul outlines this in Romans chapter 8, verses 18 through 21, in which, in this portion of scripture, he's talking about the future glory. So starting in verse 18, Paul says, "For I consider that the suffering of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption, and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God." So here, the Apostle Paul outlines for us that not only because of Adam and Eve's sin did that affect just them, but it affected everything that's around us, all of creation. And creation is just waiting for Jesus to return so that Jesus can make all things new, not just in humanity, but for all of creation as well. So now it's important to ask the question, amongst all of the death and decay and natural disasters that happen in today's world, where is the beauty that was in the beginning of the creation, or is any still there at all? And there are different areas of science that we can look to in order to see this beauty. We could look to biology, to chemistry, to physics or astronomy, and even to geology to give us some sort of different areas to look at in order to view God's tinkering in creation and that he still sustains the creation. So for example, in biology, there's no better place to start than the human body, which we honestly take for granted all the time. The human body is amazing, both male and female bodies. I specifically want to highlight the biochemistry that goes on in the body. All of your body's systems need to be working together in harmony or in union in order for your body to function well. The body's natural responses to stress is incredible. For example, we all know of the compound called adrenaline. It's the fight or flight compound, but the body makes this all by itself. It's made when you're in those fight or flight situations. Also in biology, we can look at nature. We can look at the beauty in the 4 seasons that we have: winter and spring, summer and fall. This specific season, as we're in the fall, I was driving down the highway and I was looking at all of the different color leaves that are on the trees right now and falling on the ground. And it made me think, wow, God programmed these trees to change their leaves and then drop them and lay dormant so that they can sleep throughout the winter to bud again in the spring. And that whole process is amazing because God programmed these trees to be able to do that. We could also look to the field of chemistry, in which we touched on biochemistry a little bit, but I specifically want to point out the chemistry of our atmosphere, in which in science we call atmospheric chemistry. So the air that we breathe is mostly nitrogen, actually, but it's mostly nitrogen and oxygen, and you got a couple various other inert gases that are in that mix as well. But it's important to note that we have the perfect balance of oxygen to all of the other gases that are in our air. Any less oxygen, and it makes it really difficult to breathe, obviously, but any more, and you have an oversaturation of oxygen, which isn't necessarily good. So we have this nice balance of oxygen to other gases that was put in place by God so that we can breathe well and our bodies can function. So those are just 2 areas of science fields that we can look at to try and see the beauty in our natural world. And there are so many other fields that we can look at, but those will have to be saved for another episode. So I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of Jesus, Jules, and Justice. I hope that you come back each week for another episode. Thank you, and God bless.